had your chance and then you blew it.
That is the most absurd statement of the year.
Nice. Nice.
Oh, baby.
I'm in my zone, I'm feeling it.
Live from West St. Paul Studios, it's time for MinneZona Sports Live with DJ Matty C and Paul the Shield Vold.
And this is MinneZona Sports Live. We are back, yes. Episode 2, I was about to say 100. We're past that. 204 episodes of MinneZona Sports Live. We welcome you. And without further ado, I'm your host, DJ Matty C, a.k.a. Matt Callan, a.k.a. Galley, a.k.a. Matty C, etc., etc., etc. And all the way from Granite City Studios in St. Cloud, Minnesota, Paul Voldy, the Shield. What's going on there, Shield?
The only thing really dragging on longer this week than the fact that we are stuck waiting for the start of the NFL football season is, like I said, this week. Holiday weekend coming up. It's a long ways to go, but yet we are still waiting for actual real football coming our way here very, very soon.
You are exactly right, Voldy. Football is coming our way very, very soon. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things to go over, especially on this show. And speaking of which, we do have a Pick'em. Pick'em is alive and going. If you guys didn't see the social medias, which most of you do see it, so I'm assuming you already know, but there are extra prizes this year. We have teamed up with our guys at the Brotherly Ballers podcast. You can win a chance to win a signed Breece Hall, Drake London, Terrell Davis helmet. Crazy. Let's go. Claps all around. Isn't that insane? I mean, it's just, we can win so many cool things. We're still going to have the giveaways with the jersey. I mean, each week and things like that, we'll have prizes. So you guys make sure you sign up. Let us know if you have any trouble, and we'll kind of go from there. So get signed up with Pick'em, and there might be another thing coming out this week as well, so keep your eyes open for that. Voldy, we got a lot to talk about tonight.
Yeah,
and
we do.
That involves a lot of football, a little bit of baseball, and some good air raids tonight. I mean, there's some stuff that we got to talk about. NFL, we got some USA flag football as well, and then we got Harbaugh talking again. You know, you always want to see how that's going, and the Steelers have their starting quarterback, so we will talk about that as well. So you know the deal. Hot take tonight: Vikings, Twins, and then Voldy's Virtues makes its triumphant return. Voldy's going to pick division winners for each NFL team, besides the Vikings, obviously, because next week is our Vikings 2024 Vikings preseason regular season preview. It's going to be awesome. Me, Voldy, Mikey's in on this. Can't wait, baby. So, with that being said, we got that, ARA, and then, of course, Shield shoutouts. So, Voldy, the Vikings have finally trimmed down the roster to 53. The Twins are struggling. We got a lot to talk about for Hot Take. We got some hot takes with the cuts as well as the struggling Twins right now, and they are down 1-0, I believe, last time I checked. So, a lot to talk about there. So I say, Voldy, we get it going with some Tater Tot Hot Take.
Fresh out of the oven, it's Tater Tot Hot Take.
All right, it is time for some Tater Tot Hot Take. Tonight, Zoners, we are talking about The Vikings' final 53-man roster. There is a lot to talk about in regards to the cuts. Some, I would say there's minor surprises. There's a couple that I do want to quick talk about, and as well as Lewis Seen. I do want to get into that as well with you too, Voldy. But the question is for not only you, Voldy, but the Zoners, how are we feeling about the 53-man roster so far? Is it what we kind of expected? Was it not? Or, I mean, was there any big surprises that you want to bring up here from this roster, Voldy? Just let us know, Zoners in the chat. But I asked this of you, Voldy. Any cuts that surprised you or anything that was noteworthy that you want to touch on?
I mean, really, the big one right off the bat, considering where he was at in his development, was probably Lewis Seen. I mean, given the fact that he was a first-round pick a couple years ago and ended up obviously getting injured his rookie season, and then last year really not getting much time, if at all, any, to show his effect on the field. That wasn't overly surprising. You hate to see the way the world is now, at least in the NFL, being a first round draft pick, and then 2-3 seasons later, you're, basically out of, off the team that drafted you, if not out of the league too. That one was a little bit, not overly surprising, but you thought he maybe would work his way, especially given the depth that the Vikings always seem to need at the cornerback position year in and year out, that maybe he would find his way on the team. Another one that was kind of surprising, and one that, at least offensively, is the running backs. I know that, Aaron Jones obviously going to be the starter for the team, but really that backup running back, and if not three running back situation that could potentially rise. The Vikings just straight up said, we're going to go with Aaron Jones and we're going to go with Ty Chandler. Kene Nwangwu got let go even after a much stronger camp than he's had in the last couple of seasons. We've seen the, now the emphasis and rise and returns in special teams. He's been the primary returner for the Vikings the last couple of years and has made some plays for the Vikings in the return game. That didn't seem to be enough for the Vikings to keep them around. Dwayne McBride got sent to the practice squad. Mo Ibrahim, who just literally signed this past week, he got let go. Myles Gaskin also got put on the practice squad too, it looks like. So the Vikings really vesting in Ty Chandler here for the season as that backup running back, as opposed to Kene Nwangwu, is a little bit more surprising. But Ty Chandler definitely much more of that pure running back the Vikings need as a backup for sure.
I like the main one, and you just mentioned it with the Kene Nwangwu, with the change of the kickoff and everything. We talked about that, but man, he was running the ball really well.
He was
this preseason, which was kind of surprising that they kind of moved on from that. But at the same time, they did, I believe, put Myles Gaskin on the practice squad. So
Correct.
If anything were to go bad, like if Jones got hurt or Ty Chandler.
Him and Dwayne McBride both got added to the practice squad. So
right. And then Robert Tonyan too. I think you already mentioned that too. So the tight end position's a little bit is kind of the one for me that's kind of questionable. You don't have TJ Hawkinson for the first 4 games, maybe even longer. We don't know. Because I think after those 4 games, they go to London, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yep.
So I doubt that he would be ready to go by then in London, but we'll see. There's a lot to factor in here as the weeks go on because, they don't play again until the following Sunday here. So it's kind of one of those things where we kind of expected this, but it depends on how his rehab is going and everything like that. I still think that there should be more severe punishment for Kirby Joseph, but that's a whole other topic we can touch on at another time. So Sam Darnold, Mullins, Hall, easy to figure out. Matt Corral, I don't know why you would bring him in all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden, we'll let you go here. But I'm not fully, I don't fully understand how that all works, but I'll trust him. So then running backs, Aaron Jones, Ty Chandler. I think it's kind of weird that you had Mo Ibrahim, and then all of a sudden you're just like, nah, we're good.
I think it's more of, let's see what they can do. Wow me. If you can wow me here in the, obviously they both got brought in, very late into camp. And it's like, all right, surprise the hell out of me. See what happens. And also, in the event another catastrophic injury takes place, they have that depth behind them. Mo Ibrahim, Matt Corral as well. Both of them were just brought in as to, fill the roster a little bit and, last one in, first one out kind of situation.
So, I mean, you never know. They could hop on here at any time and go from there. So, fullback, well, that's easy. Don't have to talk much about that. Wide receivers, this pretty much expected. Don't really need to go over that. Lucky Jackson had some flashes. So as we look at the tight ends, let's just put this out here. So no T.J. Hawkinson. The contracts I think they have N'Keal Harry on the practice squad now too.
They did sign him to the practice squad. I did see that. Yep.
So you got some flexibility, and hopefully, I saw a couple nice catches he had, but I still think he's working towards being kind of that tight end. Josh Oliver's more of a blocking tight end, and then you have Johnny Munt, who again, I like Johnny Munt. I don't know about you, but I think he can fill the void, but I don't know. I hope that it doesn't limit our options on offense. That's the main thing that I think is key here. But they go Jefferson, Addison, Naylor, Powell, Tristan Jackson. I would have been shocked if they waived him because he was phenomenal those 3 games.
Absolutely.
So, just hopefully it doesn't limit them. Let's see. So O-line, the big news is Dalton Reisner on IR, so he'll be designated to return. Blake Brandel takes that starting spot, as well as Ed Ingram. There's been questions about Ingram and how that's been going. He took a lot of snaps with the twos in the preseason game against the Browns, which I don't know if we should be okay with that or if we should be concerned, but that's another thing to look at as well. D-line, James Lynch is back on the practice squad, so is Jonah Williams. Jaquelin Roy was a draft pick that the Vikings had not too long ago. He unfortunately did not make the team. Levi Drake Rodriguez looks pretty good as well. And then kind of Bo Richter was kind of the standout in camp. He's on the practice squad, so he might bring him up. So, but after that, it's the typical, Stephon Gilmore, Byron Murphy Jr., Shaq Griffin, Caleb Evans, Fabian Monroe, and Dwight McGlothern, who had a really good camp. So we need as many cornerbacks as we can get. One interesting one, though, and I want your thoughts on this, Voldy. Duke Shelley, contract terminated. He was cut. Is it because, I think this affects it because Gilmore, and then you have Dwight McGlothern making the team. I mean, I think Duke Shelley's time in purple is pretty much a donezo, if I were to guess. What do you think of Duke being cut?
Yeah, I think it was one of those you would like to have seen, Duke Shelley be that veteran guy and a presence in that defensive backfield, given the fact that he has been given chances with the Vikings in the past. But now you bring in a guy like Stephon Gilmore to add to that depth. Shaq Griffin, going through injury currently, but on the right track to come back. And some of the other signings, obviously with Byron Murphy Jr. in the past, Caleb Evans is kind of a make or break season for him. Fabian Moreau as well, and the real supplies, Dwight McGlothern as well, has been a very welcome sight, because we do know the fact that cornerback has been a position for the Vikings on the defensive side, at least, that has been an ever-going rotation. So, Duke was going to be that odd man out on the backside of his career, I believe, and this was kind of like one of those last hurrah kind of chances for him to, maybe make his way back to the team.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, no more Shelley Island. I did like doing that in 2022, but
that was fun.
times move on, and we gotta be behind the guys that we have right now. So, the big one, which is kind of pretty much expected, Lewis Cine. So Lewis Cine gets way. I think the Vikings did try to trade him. It was kind of the same thing with Kene Nwangwu. They tried to trade him, wasn't able to get anything, so they just waived him, let him go. I don't want to say, and the zoners can chime in on this too, I don't want to say that it was fully the injury. What I've been hearing, and this is from just observing, and obviously from what I've been hearing, is that Lewis Cine doesn't really know anything outside of safety. Pretty much, and I know that's his position and everything like that, but he's kind of more the guy that's going to come in and hit you, but maybe he'll screw up the coverage because he's not fully invested or something like that. Now, the dude's leg almost came off in that game. I mean, you got to give him some of the benefit of the doubt. But when he was fully healthy, there was nothing. We didn't see anything that was that had flashes of, okay, this is why they drafted him, at the end of the first round that year. And he just didn't really, I don't know if he really fit the mold. And I believe he was drafted when Donatel was defensive coordinator. You bring in Brian Flores, and then you have to change some things up there. The emergence of Cam Bynum, I think, hurt a little bit too, because I almost felt like Cine and Harry were going to be opposite of each other, or if Harry retired, Lewis Cine would take that spot, Cam Bynum, and then Metellus. But, I just think that Lewis Cine just had to be a little bit more than just, I'm going to come in and hit you. But you also have to be smart in coverage. And I think in coverage, he wasn't great. Yeah, he had the interception here this preseason, but it just shows you, Voldy and zoners, that, the preseason's pretty much worthless. I mean, he had that great game against the Browns, but this is against third, fourth stringers. We needed to see him do that against ones, twos, things like that. So it doesn't surprise me. I think when people are like, see, he's back. See what he did against the Browns? Doesn't matter. He was a liability, and unfortunately the Vikings have to eat up some dead cap. Voldy, do you have any thoughts to add with the Vikings getting rid of Lewis Cine? He signs with the Jets, I believe. The Jets signed him.
Correct. Yep.
So he'll get another chance.
A lot of
here.
signings. My goodness.
And then Kene Nwangwu, I believe, went to the Aints, which is a yucky place.
No.
Ew.
Gross. Now we have to hate him. Oh, I hate to do that.
Damn it.
I don't want to, but we have to.
I like Kene. That's the thing.
Yeah, I liked him too.
Voldy, thoughts on Lewis Cine here?
With Lewis Cine, the injury obviously did not help his career, but, making that adjustment from the college to the pro style defense definitely didn't come through. You look at him and, the style of play, very reminiscent, kind of a Sean Taylor, going to knock your head off, try to go for the ball and everything too. But, that doesn't really have a place in the current the current landscape of the NFL. You definitely have to be a much more cover safety, make the big play, obviously be able to come in on rush coverage at that same time too. But that didn't really translate with Scene's play. I think just kind of resetting back to him this season. And, you really learn a lot from a lot of these players and how they are going to match up. It's not even the preseason. It's obviously those joint practices and those inter-squad matchups too, when the top defense goes against the top offense as well. And given those opportunities there, Scene didn't really come on to making a name for himself. Sure, he had that nice game against the Browns in the preseason game, but really the joint practices and those inter-squad matchups are really where you're going to make those big differences, and being able to, adjust and stand out in years past didn't really help with his overall play with the Vikings. Now he's getting a chance with the Jets. We'll see how that goes. A whole bunch of guys moving elsewhere. And I mean, I've seen so many moves here in the last 10 minutes from players moving left, right, and center. Taylor Heineke is now on the Chargers, apparently. He got traded from the Falcons to the Chargers. Bailey Zappi's now in Kansas City. It is just a wonderful, crazy time that no one would have thought said things would have taken place. But for Lewis Scene, that whole project, if he would have stayed healthy, I feel like he would have gotten a better chance. But, obviously it's kind of a situation a la Teddy Bridgewater. He got hurt. He tried to come back. Didn't have his chance. Unfortunately, Teddy got robbed of a chance. I'll say that.
Right.
And that I will go to my grave saying the Vikings gave up on Teddy way too quickly. For Lewis Scene, he had his chances, and unfortunately, he didn't. He couldn't capitalize on them for sure.
So, I mean, that you're gonna have hits and misses, and people are like, "Oh, that's a big miss by Kwesi." Okay, yeah, it's a miss, but guess what? Not every GM's gonna hit on every. I was
gonna say it was his first draft.
Yeah,
that was his first draft pick. They're not all gonna work. If we look back on that draft, I'd love to go look back at that draft and who all came out of that draft and be like, okay, that guy was a miss. Here's a hit. So if you hit on 5 out of 6 or however many picks they had that year, I feel like that's a pretty good ratio for sure.
Right. So we got that to look at. So Will Reichert had a very good preseason for the kicking game. Nothing really much with the special teams, but Will Reichert's our guy. So that's good. No Greg Joseph anymore. I believe Anders Carlson for the Packers just got cut by Green Bay. Not saying that the Vikings are going to go after. I'm just saying, just some other notable cuts. So that being said, that'll do it for our Vikings talk. Remember, next week we will be doing our purple preview like we always do every year before the start of the Viking season, obviously the NFL season as well. Mikey will be joining us, and we will be doing our bold predictions. Voldy, I hope you got some good bold predictions, like always. Like you've had these past couple of years. It's been really good, so I'm looking forward to hearing your next one next week. So we're going to have a ton of fun with that. I can't wait. All right, let's move on to these Minnesota Twins. Oof, it has been not good for the Minnesota Twins as of late. They are currently losing right now, I believe, 1-0. They've had injuries. You can blame it on injuries. You can do whatever you want to. But, all I got to say is I told you so. And they're starting to falter in the AL Central, but they're still in it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But the Royals have jumped them. Our starting rotation is not great. Bailey Ober didn't have the best game, even though there was a strong storm coming through, which he's actually been our best pitcher so far. But the bullpen is a problem now. It's all catching up to them. And if you are the Minnesota Twins right now and you're looking to, get a playoff spot and everything like that, I almost feel like I don't want them to make the playoffs, Voldy. I don't know about you, but I think they'd get smoked by whoever they play in that wild card. And it's sad to see, because now all of a sudden this is a big problem. So what are your thoughts here on these Twins struggles? They played St. Louis, they lost that series, and they're probably going to lose the series to the Atlanta Braves, who are a very good team nonetheless.
Yeah.
But still, do you still believe, Voldy? Are the playoff chances starting to dwindle a lot here for the Minnesota Twins? What do you got?
The chances are low, but the chances are still not zero as of right now. There is a chance. There's something stupid and crazy can always happen, because we know with these Twins, they always like to take it to the very last couple of games of the season before they, punch their ticket to the playoffs. I just think right now the bullpen has had more questions than actual answers. The fact that the Twins can't get it all the way through, it's usually about the 6th or 7th inning is when the wheels really start to come off for the Twins too. They can't get it to the 8th or 9th to get to Johan Duran. And if they do get it to Duran, it's at a point now where the offense hasn't been able to reciprocate to get them that big hit. They've had some nice breakout performances. Christian Vasquez has been really nice in the second half in the last month alone for the Twins. But the overall consistency in the lineup, we've got guys coming up and down like crazy. Brooks Lee was a really nice spot. He's back with the Saints currently and is, obviously you want him to play as much as possible. But really it's the pitching and the bullpen that has hurt the Twins in the back half of the season, and just timely hitting has not come through. And that's just one thing that just continues to be just a real kick in the pants, is that, even if you do get a good pitching performance out of, whoever is starting, and lately the timely hitting hasn't come through to a point where they've given up leads late. They haven't had the bullpen to reciprocate any sort of positive movement, at least in the last few weeks for sure.
They are 3-7 in their last 10 games, which kind of throws things through a loop a little bit. Granted, San Diego is a very good team, right? They're still, with Machado and those guys. I really haven't been following them, but I assume they're playoff bound. And it just kind of started after that series with the Rangers. They won the series 3 out of 1. But after that game, then they lose to San Diego twice. They win versus San Diego and did not get swept. And then they lose to St. Louis, unfortunately, and now the Twins are getting their butts kicked by Atlanta, unfortunately. So as I'm looking at the rest of the season here of Voldy for the Minnesota Twins, you got Toronto. It's kind of been up and down this year. I think that's. Then you got your hated Tampa Bay Rays right after that one.
That's a series loss.
Ah, damn it. I was hoping.
I know. Tampa always plays the Twins well.
Yeah,
for some reason.
Kansas City, that'll be a big series, and that's at Kansas City. Then they got Los Angeles. They're just a mess, so they should be able to handle them. The Reds, I believe,
yeah, it's a loss.
Or against the Angels, they don't play.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Twins have been notorious about making bad teams look really good.
Yeah.
Any series against Oakland, whether it be home or away, the Oakland looks like the 90s Yankees for some reason against the Twins. They just completely just slap them no matter what.
Then after that, they go to Cleveland. That's a 4-game series, so that's another key one. Boston, never easy. Home against Miami. And then they play Baltimore at home, which I don't feel great about that.
No.
So, I mean, this is put up or shut up. And if they can't get it done, and I hate bringing this up, but I have to say this, and it's nothing that you haven't heard before, but it's true. There is a reason why the Minnesota Twins are not going back to where they were last year. And we all know what I'm going to say. The poll ads, they cut the payroll, the Bally Sports North Xfinity Comcast ordeal. They can't figure anything out. It comes down to them. And, they say, well, there were injuries and things like that. You had Sonny Gray sitting in the palm of your hand. And you decided not to pay him. You decided, we'll just let the young arms go. Well, you're barely hanging on to your young arms. They're dropping like flies. Joe Ryan ain't coming back. Hate to tell you that. But Woods Richardson, he's okay. He's got promise. Lopez is kind of getting things together. Hopefully Ober can bounce back from the bad start. But I'm telling you, the reason why they're not back to where they were is because they weren't willing to spend money. And they cut the payroll. They said, screw the Twins fans. We don't care. This is kind of how it is. And you can only work so much with that. So I'm not going to go on to the full rant because we'll be here till like 9 o'clock. So it comes down to that. It comes down to the guys at top, and they've completely screwed the Twins. Sorry. Not sorry, because it's ridiculous. So hopefully they can get things going here. Hopefully that they can not get swept by the Braves here today, and get back on the winning track, get on a little bit of a hot streak, and then, hey, maybe our thoughts will change here. But it isn't at zero, like you said, Voldy, their playoff chances. So.
My question for you before the end of the season, say the Twins don't make the playoffs, who goes first, Baldelli or Derek Falvey?
That's a great question, because I just saw an article saying that, well, Falvey's probably going to stay, right? But I believe what they'll do is they're going to let Rocco go, which I am kind of a fan of, because, again, he has muffed up the whole letting these pitchers go till, the analytics say we got to stop here, and we bring somebody in. And all of a sudden you bring in somebody else, and then now you're getting smoked, So I think it's going to be Rocco before Falvey. But I don't know. Maybe it is Falvey. If they don't make the playoffs and everything, and they're gonna have somebody's gonna be the fall guy. But I don't know. It's unpredictable. So I'll go Baldelli. What do you think, Baldelli or Falvey?
Yeah, I think Baldelli too. The last couple of seasons been very underwhelming, considering the promise that the Twins do have. Especially having a guy like Carlos Correa, if he can stay healthy. Byron Buxton trying to stay more healthy this year than in years past. The rise in the pitching rotation, too, that we've seen this year has been very strong, considering years past, where you had guys like Griffin Jacks, you had Bailey Ober. You weren't quite sure if they were going to stick it out in the rotation, if they were going to be relievers. Jacks has really solidified himself in the bullpen. Ober has definitely become a top arm in the rotation for the Twins. With that youth movement coming up for them. And another thing, too, especially with the pitchers, being taken out, too, it really comes down to philosophy beyond Baldelli, too, and especially all of baseball, because you get some of these young arms coming up nowadays, too. It's all about maximizing how hard they can throw, as they're gonna redline it from first pitch till however long that is, whether it be 80 pitches through 9 innings or 90 pitches through 6 innings. There's no efficiency when it comes to, let's not throw as hard in the first inning, so that way we still have some for the 8th and 9th inning, as opposed to, I'm going to throw as hard as I can in the first inning, and if I get pulled after 5 innings because I've thrown 86 pitches and have thrown, 73 strikes or something like that, something ungodly like that, hey, that's a good day, as opposed to, I'm going to mix and match. I'm going to pick my spots. I'm going to Greg Mannix the shit out of this start and hopefully get, a complete game in under 100 pitches or something like that. You don't see that anymore. And it infuriates me because of the fact that pitchers are taught nowadays throw as hard as he can for as long as he can, whether it be for 4 innings, whether it be for 19 innings, doesn't matter. You throw as hard as you can up until the point to the wheels fall off, basically. But getting back to it, I could very well see, it's one of those. It's one or the other. If you get rid of Voldy, you're going to have to get rid of Baldelli, because a GM is going to want to find a manager that's going to work well with him. And if you get rid of Baldelli, you've got a GM already in place to find a suitable replacement for a manager. I think it's definitely Baldelli over Voldy for sure.
Which, and I've said it for a long time with Baldelli. I don't think he's a good fit, and but they won't listen. That's all right. We'll see. But hopefully, I think it will be Baldelli if they really suck this last month. So, all right, that will do it for Tater Tot Hot Take this week. Voldy, as the NFL season approaches, I think you have division winners ready to roll tonight for each team. Now, I believe you are waiting on the NFC North for next week.
Yes.
When we do our purple preview with Mikey Ryne with the Minnesota Vikings. And there's a lot of divisions that are kind of up for grabs. There's some that are like, well, yeah, this team's going to win, Exactly. So there's going to be a lot of question marks with some teams too. So I assume you will be talking about that as we head to the Temple of Wisdom so Voldy can enlighten us with his knowledge.
He has emerged from the Temple of Wisdom. Gather round for Voldy's virtues.
All right, we are gathered at the Temple of Wisdom. Voldy, enlighten us with your NFL division winners knowledge.
Of course. Yes, we are just over a week away from the very first game of the 2024 NFL season. Of course, next Thursday will be that NFL kickoff with the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Baltimore Ravens in a rematch of the AFC Championship. But of course, that does bring the promise that this could be the year for your team and hopefulness that maybe your team did enough to right the wrongs of last season. Of course, which I see with every year and being the start of a brand new season, is the constant need to make your voice heard on who is going to win each division and let people know what you say means business. And that's what I plan on doing here tonight by breaking down each division and letting you know who will be winning that division. This is strictly off the standpoint of my gut reaction, gun to my head. You're asking me who's going to win each division. So what I present to you is solid, concrete predictions of each division winner for the upcoming season. Starting first, the AFC, of course, we go with the highly contested AFC East. Of course, my choice for this year, as much as it pains me to say, is going to be the Miami Dolphins. Like we have said in years past, the last few years, it's the Bills' division to lose. But in this case, this year, the Fins make that jump over the Great Falls of Buffalo. As much as it pains me to say, Miami, they do have a fast offense. Settling in with that core of receivers that they do have, with Tuatagovailoa, of course, with their deep running game that they do have with Raheem the Dream Mostert, and of course Devin A-Chain as well. Their fast defense, which did get some help, especially in the back half of last season, with the likes of Jalen Ramsey, now him back further into the fold now with a full off season, and guys coming back with their edge rush that did take a couple of injuries towards the back half of last season that kind of hindered them from getting that constant pressure on their opponent as well. That will be able to help them close out games much more that aren't winning by 30, 40 points, as opposed to, putting up 70 points in a game like they did last season. I know most people want to go with the New York Jets as kind of that sexy pick to win the division, but I have a better feeling that the Fins are getting the job done this year. As of course for the New England Patriots, as I proudly wear here this inning, any divisional wins that they pick up this year, whether it be against the Bills, the Jets, or even the Finns as well, is much more on top of what their seasonal output would be. That's all going to be a bonus under first-year head coach Gerard Mill. I've been surprised even less in those regards. Moving on to the AFC West, of course, being put into the frame of the back-to-back Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. It's pretty obvious why I went with that route as my choice. Not often do you see the back-to-back Super Bowl champions get better not only through the draft, but also they found a way to do so by picking up the combine record holder in the 40-yard dash in Xavier Worthy, a wide receiver, by revamping their wide receiver core. Bit of a sour spot that's been the last couple of seasons, yet somehow last couple seasons they've ended up winning Super Bowls. Sure, they lost a few guys on their defensive side with, of course, the likes of with Gay and also with L'Jarius Sneed, but they have somehow be able to find a way to make up for their loss on defense by getting the success that they did early in this dynastic run that they've had with a hellacious scoring offense. This will be a very interesting run for the division in the AFC West with teams like, the up-and-coming Los Angeles Chargers, first year head coach for them in Harbaugh as well, Jimharbaugh, that being the Las Vegas Raiders, who gave them a run for their money last year, and even the Denver Broncos, which will probably be the fourth man in that four-man race as they try to find a way to dethrone the champs. I feel like the Vegas Raiders and the Chargers have better chances, and yet somehow Kansas City will always find a way to get it done despite their best efforts sometimes. A game on Christmas Day this past year where the Raiders came into Arrowhead and slapped the barbecue out of the mouth of Kansas City. That was very surprising, but yet Kansas City still ended up hoisting the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the year, while the Raiders weren't doing much of anything. Now moving on to the AFC North, another tight race that will take place amongst four teams. This one was a little harder to pick than any division I looked at through the upcoming season, but I went with the Cincinnati Bengals as my choice to win the AFC North. Now, this is a team that does have a lot to prove this upcoming season in the AFC North, despite the fact that, of course, a lot of people are saying, well, it's definitely the Baltimore Ravens that have the most to prove. Can't win the big one when it matters. But if you look at Cincinnati the last couple of seasons, of course, Burrow coming off an injury, and especially now a reinvigorated offensive line with those trusted receivers, even though a little bit of that is in question right now with the likes of Jamar Chase maybe not being so much ready to for the start of the season. Let's just say that there is one thing that was not an easy choice to make in this one, but a difference maker in it is that killer instinct of Joe Burrow, or Joey Burr, whatever you want to call him as well, will be that difference maker in this crowded divisional race. They do have to watch out, obviously, for Lamar and the Ravens. That's going to be some very good matchups for them. Obviously, they got to play them twice. The retoolings of Cleveland and Pittsburgh, a lot more uncertainty for me there, but I've been surprised. Again, this one could very well be a four-sided coin to flip and see who's going to make that ultimate decision in winning the AFC North, but the Cincinnati Bengals were my choice to win the division out of the AFC North. Now switching over to the South. Not a hard overall choice, but certainly one that people are going to be questioning. It's going to be the Houston Texans to win the AFC South. Now, what we saw in Houston last year was certainly unexpected given the fact of the years of damage that was done in previous regimes, given this turnaround now, but it won't be a fluke this time around. Somehow they added a little bit more depth on the receiver side. They added depth in the running back room. They even added depth on the defensive side with that defensive line and getting a couple more edge guys to even bolster out a young up-and-coming defensive line that they do have. That's definitely giving the Texans a big-time edge when it comes to this competition for the AFC South. Now, the Jags and Colts aren't very much for slouches in that AFC South. The Jags, if they can stay healthy, stay competitive with a couple of key additions that they've gotten on both sides of the ball. The Colts are trying to stay healthy too and get their young offensive weapons to stay on the field with Anthony Richardson, starting quarterback, Jonathan Taylor as well. They will definitely have something to compete with, and even the Titans are looking to put some things together with that new coach that they've got there. But I feel that the Texans are in the best fit out of them all to take the divisional crown out of that once dumpster fire of Houston and, of course, the AFC South. Switching over to the NFC side, and no, I will not be picking out of the East the Dallas Cowboys. It was my initial thought right off the bat to start off, but now looking at the greater picture of everything, the Philadelphia Eagles, the dumpster fire that now belongs to the NFC East, out of that dumpster fire, the one that is most least on fire, and they are still on fire, but not as badly charred as the rest of their opponents, the Philadelphia Eagles are just the least nuts out of the lot when it comes to it. New offense coordinator, former Cowboys great Kellen Moore, will help push that back into that Super Bowl form, despite the losses that they did have, not only on the offensive side, but also a few on the defensive side. Hey, the Eagles did pick up Saquon Barkley. How's that going to mesh well with now a true running back that they can slot at that number one spot with the running back position to go along with Jalen Hurts? The Cowboys certainly look like a decent team on paper, but we've seen it from time and time again that the Cowboys know how to successfully fall from grace year in and year out. The Giants are still the Giants, not going to do much anything. And the Commanders, they do have a couple too many questions for me to even make a good decision on maybe whether to put them at a much higher position for me to even think about being comfortable enough to take them at that number one spot in the division. Young rookie quarterback, new head coach as well. See how that really meshes given the fact that Dan Quinn, the defensive coach, with a young rookie quarterback. We'll see how things line up with that too. Moving on to the NFC West, the defending NFC champions, that being the San Francisco 49ers, were my selection as well. They've had a lot more eyes on them off the field than on the field this offseason. Of course, the training camp and, of course, the Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk contractual obligations or lack thereof, and trying to get them back on the field. Despite all of that, they still look good enough to retain the division on their way with that electric offense. You still got Debo. You still got Christian McCaffrey. You still got George Kittle. You got Mr. Quads himself and Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant no more. It's Mr. Quads this coming season. But yet, you look at it, the Rams, Cardinals, and Seahawks are starting to get a lot more healthy. Kyler Murray back into it with the Cardinals as well. The Rams going to be healthy, hopefully, now with options that they have with Cooper Kupp. And they have Puka Nacua. Now they have, of course, Matthew Stafford. How's that going to all play together? Can Geno Smith really put things back to back now with a new head coach up in Seattle at the same time? They could certainly do make a run at the 49ers. But I always throw out that experience will always triumph a healthy team. And the 49ers do have that bevy of experience on their side with guys playing in a lot of those big games down the stretch in a very crowded and always very competitive NFC West.
Absolutely.
Had to take a moment here because this one, my last one before we talk about to the NFC North. We're going to head to the NFC South. I feel like this one is probably the biggest jump that I've had in selecting a team here out of the divisional winners. And maybe it's not a jump if you're a fan of the Atlanta Falcons. I chose the Atlanta Falcons to win the division this year. Now, this one really confused me at face value. You could make a legitimate argument for all four teams. Carolina, you're going to have to do a lot of convincing and a lot of paying under the table for me to take them as the divisional winner. But still, nonetheless, I like what Atlanta has done this offseason to move ahead of the pack. Obviously, the big one being signing Kirk Cousins. You draft Michael Penix as well. You give them that veteran guidance that's much needed in an offense that does have some young, impactful players. Kyle Pitts. You throw in, obviously, you have Bijan Robinson if they want to give him the ball this year. A lot of those young playmakers, while adding depth to their defensive backfield, that they did go out and sign a lot of, needed veteran experience to Raheem Morris, that was a defensive coach when he first came to the league, and really remade a name for himself the last handful of years as a defensive coordinator. Now getting another chance as a head coach could very well be the big difference maker that they have in giving them a puncher's chance at the divisional title ahead of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have held that NFC South hostage over the last few years. Now, you don't really know what you're going to get out of New Orleans. You don't know what you're going to get out of Carolina. Carolina, I'm going to put them firmly in the 4 spot at the NFC South. Nothing personal against them, but if it's anything like what we saw last season, I think we're going to keep them down there. We might be down there for a couple seasons. We'll see nonetheless. But I'm taking the Atlanta Falcons to win the NFC South this year. Now, of course, we've been kind of alluding to it a little bit here and there with the NFC North. Now, we did have that nice long discussion few weeks back with the NFC North roundtable representation from all 4 teams on that. So you got a little sneak peek of where my head's kind of leaning when it comes to NFC North and the Vikings. Lions did win their first division title in the last 30 years. The Packers are young, and they're looking to build off a strong second half of the season they had, including a momentous victory that they had in the playoffs against the Dallas Cowboys. And the Bears, well, they drafted well, and they are looking to continue on with that hard knocks bump to go with the offseason that they have. And I believe a stat is in the last, 11 years or so of hard knocks, that 7 out of those 11 teams have made the playoffs this year. So the Vikings are obviously in a post-transitional era, post-Kirk Cousins, and waiting for the J.J. McCarthy experiment until 2025. With all that being taken into account, you'll have to tune in next week with our Purple Preview for our bold predictions of the NFC North and, of course, the Minnesota Vikings season ahead. So there they are, my division winners for the upcoming season. Out of the AFC, the East will go the way of the Finns. The West, it will go to the Chiefs. It will go Cincinnati in the North. In the South, it's the Houston Texans. In the NFC side, the Philadelphia Eagles. The West, it will go to the Niners. The South, the Falcons. And the NFC North, to be determined next week. There you go.
Damn right. I like pretty much all of them. The Falcons one, I don't think you're too far off because, I like the talent there. They added Matthew Judon to their defense, which I think is going to help them. Extending A.J. Terrell, who I think is a very good corner. Justin Simmons, too. They're pushing their chips in a little bit. The Niners, I just think they're going to be tough to beat. I think so it went from Ayuk might be coming back, I guess, instead of not leaving. I don't know how that's all going to work, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
We kind of agree too. The Eagles, you don't feel super confident in it, and the Cowboys, they do have CD Lamb back, and Dak. There's a big decision to be had at the end of the season, so we'll see what happens around that time. Bengals look stronger. Texans look stronger as well. Chiefs, well, it's the Chiefs. Don't have to say much there. And then the Dolphins, I think this is a very key season for them because, we gave them a pass 2 years ago when they first started. Okay, first year with McDaniel. Then you give them, and then we go to this past season, and they go to Kansas City, and it's like, all right, you got to, do something here. And they didn't do much. And, you give Tua that money, and hopefully you can live up to that. We'll be talking about Tua here in a little bit. I have some thoughts on that. But, no, I don't think you're that far off. That's pretty much where I was thinking most of the teams here, too. But for the NFC North, you'll wait till next week, and we'll talk about that. Have a lot of good things with that. So, Zoners, let us know what you think of Voldy's predictions for each division, and let us know what you guys think. Who would you add into the mix, or when they're respective divisions. So let us know. All right, Voldy, great job with Virtues, as always.
Thanks,
we
sir.
love bringing back Virtues. And then tonight, it's going to be primarily NFL. There's been a lot of news these past few days and since we were off a week. So we'll be talking about that. We got the roster trimmed downs. There's some surprising moves. Tua criticizes our guy, B-Flow. Tomlin makes a decision between Russell Wilson, Justinfields, Harbaugh wants to get Kaepernick on his staff, and usaflagfootball QB sounds off on nflplayers. Ooh, that'll be controversial too. So I say, Voldy, we get it going. What's up? Absurd or approved?
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Absurd or Approved.
All right, it is time for Absurd or Approved, and I got about 20 minutes before my first Fantasy Football League draft starts. We don't need to rush through this, obviously, because I do have it up, and I'm ready to go. So it's because everyone cares about my fantasy football team. Not. Let's get it started. Voldy, why don't you rattle them off for us, please?
Of course, with this week leading down to cut down day, the NFL did trim down rosters to 53 players for the upcoming season. Of course, some names being taken off that maybe those that were looking to make an impact with a new team, maybe those that were on their last chance with their current squad as well. Rosters get trimmed down, maybe a few surprising releases and roster cuts. Of course, we've alluded to with the Vikings, a couple other trades taking place. Looking at some of the notable names that have been taken off, were there any surprises that you saw with these NFL rosters getting trimmed down to the 53 players active?
That's a great question. I would say, we went through our Vikings and, things like that. Apparently, our guy, infamous Jameis, they've been looking to possibly trade because it sounds like DTR is they like him as a backup to Deshaun Watson. Now, that one's kind of surprising because I know infamous Jameis, it seemed like he was really fitting in there in Cleveland. So looks like they might be doing some stuff there. We'll keep an eye on that. But just kind of looking at some of the other possible or other ones that are kind of surprising. This one's not really surprising to me, actually. But remember our good friend Martavis Bryant? He was playing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he was playing or trying out for the Commanders, which is interesting.
Yeah, scored a touchdown. Yep.
And he scored a touchdown, so good for him. But unfortunately, he was released. I was kind of hoping he'd make it, just because let's give him a second chance, right? See how it goes.
Right.
I don't know. There's not a whole lot that I'm like, well, this doesn't look great. One thing that I didn't see coming was A.J. Dillon out for the year with a neck injury or something for Green Bay. So you do have Josh Jacobs. I can't believe Greg Joseph is going to be the Packers kicker now, which is kind of surprising in itself. So that's a big surprise, especially in the division. So I'd say that, and then the RB2 spot goes to Marshawn Lloyd. I guess he had a hamstring injury, so I don't know. The running backs, there's not a whole lot for him going. But the big surprise, I'm going to go with the one today. Our guy, the chef, Dalvin Cook, going to the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas had the old skeletal remains of Zeke Elliott, who, again, I swear is definitely 100% washed. I'm just telling you right now, he's washed.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they bring in Dalvin. I think that's kind of the biggest surprise for me is that, Dallas willing to go out and get Dalvin Cook, hopefully help out their running game. But I don't know. There were some murmurs, outside chance to fight, and I'm like, no, we got Jones, we got Chandler, we're all right. So so yeah, I'll go with Dalvin going to the Cowboys. I'll go with that one. So that's the one I got. Voldy, what do you got?
I mean, that was definitely a big surprise for sure. I mean, they signed him to the practice squad, so maybe he'll earn his way up to active roster.
Sure.
I mean, if there even was rumblings of Dalvin coming back, you would think that it would be sign his one-day contract so he can retire a Viking. I would have no quarrels about that taking place. But, some of the moves that I found very surprising was including of which, speaking of Green Bay, and of course with their running back situation, they went out and traded for a quarterback, believe it or not. They went out and got Malik Willis from Tennessee. The whole Malik Willis experience in Tennessee never really got off the ground to begin with. I mean, he was a high draft pick for them a handful of years ago. Never really saw much action of any kind behind Tannehill, and of course now the rise of Will Levis down there. Now the Packers go out and go for him. I found that very interesting, given the fact that they had a couple of decent backups too. Sean Clifford was a guy that was, high in regard for them. Of course, they do have Jordan Love, so make it very interesting. Now with the situation they have at running back, I mean, yes, you do have Josh Jacobs, but which Josh Jacobs are you going to get? Are you going to get the oft-injured Josh Jacobs, or are you going to get the rookie version of Josh Jacobs that ran for 1,100 yards back in the days of the then Oakland Raiders for them? Couple other interesting moves I saw made, just given the fact that one of, just to throw out there too, was the situation with the quarterbacks in New England. You have being the veteran starter in Jacoby Brissett. See how that plays out. He did get injured just after a handful of snaps in that Sunday night game against Washington, so I found that very interesting. Now you have, of course, 2 draft picks behind Jacoby Brissett, Drake May, who really picked things up in the last game and a half that he's played, and Joe Milton as well, who at one point was playing out of his mind and even playing ahead of Drake May, but still 2 very young quarterbacks, a grizzled veteran that is well known in the New England area in Jacoby Brissett. They go out and decide to waive a guy that was taking serious snaps for them the last handful of years. That was Bailey Zappi. Zappi gets let go and is ultimately picked up by Kansas City. So I found that very interesting. In the times where formerly the Patriots would only keep 2 quarterbacks on roster, they decide to go out and keep 3 on the roster. Be very interesting to see. Head coach Gerard Mayo's not playing anything out yet. He's not named a starter as of yet for them. It could very well be tomorrow, could be very well next day, could be very well early next week. You would like to know sooner than later, at least for their sake. I found it very interesting the way it's broken all down with New England and their quarterback situation. We could very well see if Jacoby Brissett is not able to go week 1. Do you go with Drake May? I would assume that they would, given the fact that he's played a lot better the last, couple of preseason games. But then again, we've said preseason really means nothing.
There are guys that have been released already are on teams, so or on practice squads. So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, you're getting updates like crazy. I'm getting updates like crazy. So we'll keep our eyes on the wire as well. So, all right, next one, Voldy.
Well, taking a look at, of course, some of the comments made, a recent conversation took place actually while we were away. Miami Dolphins quarterback Tuatagovailoa and now defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings, former Miami Dolphins head coach Brianflores. Of course, they 2 met in the early goings of the career of Tuatagovailoa and bringing him to the NFL out of Alabama. And Tua in an interview did say that he was quoted as saying that he called Flores, quote, a terrible person, given the fact that he was never really given a chance at that quarterback position as well. And of course, an excerpt of the interview. And it was quoted as even saying that, there wasn't a lot of confidence instilled into Tua in his early goings of his career down in Miami with Flores as head coach, and being kind of very standoffish and adversarial, if you will, between Flores and Tua Tagovailoa as well. In that conversation that did take place on the Dan Le Batard show, it really painted a picture of Brian Flores not being a nice person, if you will, given his time as head coach for the Miami Dolphins. And we've seen in the past too, and of course with Flores saying that the team was basically taken out from right underneath him, and his ultimate firing from his head coaching duties in Miami. Now, looking at the whole conversation and the comments made about Brian Flores, is it absurd or approved to his comments about not being helped by Flores as Miami's head coach his rookie season, and now going into obviously a much more successful future that he's had in recent years?
I'm glad you did this one today, Voldy. This is interesting to me because, I feel like people have kind of given Tua this pass of like, okay, he's dealt with some concussion issues, this and that. But under this offense, this tutelage under Mike McDaniel, he has somewhat flourished. I mean, they went to the playoffs last year, and the year before that, and then they were out in the first round pretty quick. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I think we need to understand is that being an NFL coach, you got to have this relationship, a good relationship with your quarterback. We've seen that with Zim and Kirk Cousins, and it obviously didn't pan out. They tried to kind of make it work and things like that, and just didn't work out.
Right.
Now, to me, Tua in that interview sounded like a Pee-wee kid having a, disgruntled coach. I mean, back in the day, Voldy, I remember when I was playing, there were coaches that would literally grab your face mask and get in your face. Mm-hmm. And, that basically is kind of almost like a reverse psychology, is they know you can do better, and there's a meaning behind it. Now, I'm kind of under the impression, maybe I am just a little bit old school here, but this is the NFL. This isn't Pee-wee football. This isn't anything. There are expectations. And as a coach, yes, you have to deal with different players differently. Or other players differently, excuse me. And in this situation, Tua wanted to be told, you're good, Tua, you're killing it. Man, that was good. You're just kicking ass, and you're doing this, you're doing X, Y, and Z. I'm sorry, but I kind of think Tua is a little bit soft here. And I want to preface this by saying that, is Tua a good player? Sure. But could Flores maybe have been a little bit nicer? Maybe. I don't know. But I don't think Brian Flores is a terrible person. I don't. I think he demands a lot of these players. And when he was head coach there, would he have changed some things? I'm sure he would have. I'm sure he would have said, okay, maybe I should approach this a little bit differently and things like that. But here's the thing that kind of peeves me a little bit, is that why is he going out and saying things like that when he should be focusing on his upcoming season, which I'm sure he is. But that interview made me look at him in a little bit of a different light. I don't hate the guy, don't get me wrong.
Right.
I still think there's potential there, but I just think it was kind of unwarranted shot at Brian Flores. I think Coach Flo has done a great job. He has done more in the first year than Ed Donatel did in his. I mean, it leaps and bounds better. So with Coach Flo, the players on the Vikings love him. I mean, they know what he expects, and I'm sure he deals with things a certain way. And if it's not the way that he has to do it, then he's got to talk with the player or do something that'll get them motivated. So I am, in fact, on Coach Flo's side, and it's not because he's on the Vikings, right? I'm kind of on his side because you know what? I think Tua just can't handle the tough love, and he wants to be Tua, like Mike McDaniel, like, oh dude, you're so great, like it's amazing, Okay, that's a good coach for you, but what about the rest of the players? It's a big question. I'm with Coach Flo. But to answer your question with Tua, his comments, he shouldn't. It's absurd that he said all this stuff. Just focus on your damn season and move on. It's over. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
So, Voldy, what do you got?
I mean, my question is why now? Why this conversation now? And I know a lot of people have brought up, he's very, Tua's really come out of his shell from his rookie season and really, gotten a lot more comfortable around when it comes to talking in the media. And of course, with even the gentleman that he did the conversation with, Dan Le Batard, formerly of ESPN, and that whole conversation was really just him kind of maybe not so much introducing himself, but really shedding a light on what he's gone through the last few years. I get that. But when it comes down to it, why does it matter what happened then as opposed to now? You're getting the success you wanted now. I'm sorry that your first head coach, a defensive coach who came from the Belichick tree of, they're not going to, pat you on the back and say, hey, great job. I'm loving what you're doing. They're not going to hold your hand through the whole situation. You're a professional athlete now. Sometimes you got to deal with the butt kicking, and I don't want to say they're going to build you down a little bit, but defensive coaches, you look at them, they're a lot more concerned. They're a lot more about fixing and correcting as opposed to, hey, you did really good with this. Hey, that was really good on that. Let's try and fix this. They're going to point out, you missed that block, you missed that tackle, you didn't cover here, you didn't communicate the switch on the defense as well. Defensive-minded coaches are much more, it's very much them against everyone else, I feel like, or at least from what I've seen. Well, offensive coaches, obviously, it's about building the team, making sure, obviously, you have the offense running together as one. Wide receivers are lined up right. You've got the running backs flanked out in the right spot. Is the tight end on the line, off the line? Is the offensive line put together? Do they know the snap count? Is the quarterback on the same, you got the play in and all that too. All those moving pieces. While on the other side, the defense is concerned, make sure we get this guy, make sure we cover that, make sure we cover up for the safety as well. He's going to be dropping down on coverage and all that too. I understand the frustration from Tua in that regard. He took a lot of hits. He came in not so much injured, but he wasn't 100% to the level of a fully healthy quarterback coming out of college than we've seen in years past. But now basically saying it was B-Flow's fault as opposed to his fault, really not a lot of accountability out of a guy now trying to, he's got his money now. So basically he's saying he can say whatever he wants now at this point. And throwing him under the bus, throwing B-Flow under the bus, kind of a scumbag move by Tua. And another reason why I didn't want to take the Dolphins to win the division this year, but given the fact that they have such an electric offense, doesn't help either. His comments are completely absurd. Why you got to keep bringing up the past and really try to drag someone under the bus, given the fact that you're having success, the success of B-Flow and what he had this past season, not at the same level of what you had. Why you got to go and, pull out skeletons out of the closet? I'm not really a fan of that. Right. It's completely absurd.
Yeah, it's just like, what's the point? Stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just I don't know, Tua. You just gotta get over it and stop being a baby. That's how I look at it. All right, next one, Voldy.
Well, sticking with the NFL in a heated quarterback competition in the Steel City, a clear winner has been chosen as head coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin did announce today that Russell Wilson will be the starting quarterback week 1 against the Atlanta Falcons, as Wilson, who did sign that one-year deal with the Steelers back in March, was in the pole position, quote unquote, when he came in initially with the Steelers, battling through injury through the preseason and through training camp, will now be that week 1 starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers, battling up against the likes of Justin Fields, who was traded from the Chicago Bears after being drafted very high in the first round from the Bears a handful of years ago for a draft pick, a conditional draft pick, battling it back and forth between Justin Fields and, of course, with Russell Wilson. Wilson came out on the positive end of that QB battle, now with the week 1 starter being set to take place against Atlanta coming up here in a week and a half. Is it absurd or proved with this quarterback battle? Will Russell Wilson remain the starting quarterback throughout the season for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, Voldy, I do have an update. I am officially on the clock for this fantasy football thing. But you timed it perfectly because I think we need to have a quick chat. I mean, it's got to be Christian McCaffrey, right?
Yes.
I mean,
there's
no question.
No question about it.
I know he's questionable and everything like that, but you got to go with the guy that A, can run the ball, B, can catch the ball, and can just, I mean, he's the best running back right now. So
C, married to a supermodel. D, even with one leg, is still better than much of the competition, not only in the division, but of course in the NFC. I mean, there's not really any questions about it. You got to take CMC with that first pick.
And our fantasy football Ballers podcast, Brotherly
Ballers.
Brotherly Ballers.
There you go.
Advised me to take McCaffrey, and that is what I am going to do. So,
Yahtzee.
Christian McCaffrey, you are back on Team Cal and No Hands. That's a whole deal.
Differently,
yeah. We'll talk about that at a different time. All right. So Tomlin picks Russ. Well, I'm Voldy, I've said this on this show, and I don't feel bad about it, but I've said Justin Fields, excuse me, let me try that again. Bustin Fields.
There you go.
Has been overhyped. And I think we all need to realize that, for one, it just shows how badly the Pittsburgh Steelers miss having a really good quarterback. And you had Roethlisberger and everything like that, but what have you had since then? You had Mason Rudolph getting hit in the head with a helmet. You've had Kenny Pickett. Yes, thank you.
Mitch Trubisky.
Mitch Trubisky, yeah, you got him going right there as well. There's somebody else, but anyway, now you have Russell Wilson, which again, you're not paying much right now. I mean, the Broncos are paying it for you, right?
83 million, baby.
83 mil, and that is pretty good, as we say here. So, I don't hate it. I mean, I think this makes more sense. It just kind of shows, you can't always run the football in order to get first downs and, go off schedule and everything. You have to be able to throw in the pocket, which just Bustin Fields can't do. And I've been telling people, this dude, yeah, he can make the electric plays, the highlight, this type of thing. There's a reason why the Bears moved on from him. There is a reason why. And they're like, oh, we want to, they're like, oh, we should keep Justin. He can do this and that. You're telling me. So I think it's kind of silly from that perspective. People think that, I think he's going to beat out Russell Wilson. Well, Russell hasn't really had a very good track record, and they've both struggled, in the offense so far. So this doesn't surprise me. You go with the veteran over the guy that you are hopefully kind of trying to fit. It's weird. I don't know.
Yes.
I would say that with Wilson being the starter, does it give you more of a chance to win? Okay, maybe. I don't hate it. I think that's a good point to make. But does it give you more? I mean, will he sit behind and be like, learn the offense a little bit more and then bring him in? I don't know. I think they're going to flip-flop this whole season. I got a feeling that's going to be the case.
Yep.
So it's got my stamp of approval just because the veteran presence and Sean Payton was a dick to Russell Wilson. Surprising. I think it's the right move. So what do you think, Voldy?
Yeah, I find it very interesting. I mean, I kind of had a sense of feeling that Russell Wilson was going to be a starting quarterback no matter what happened. If Justin Fields lit the preseason on fire and threw for 87 touchdowns and threw no picks, I still felt like Russell Wilson was going to be the starting quarterback. Even if Russell Wilson lost both of his legs at a horrible training camp incident, he was still going to be the number one starter. It's not for a lack of trust in Justin Fields. I just feel like, especially when it comes to Tomlin, it's about sit here, watch, learn.
Yeah.
Learn by doing from that point on. And I felt like with Justin Fields, as soon as he came in the league, he didn't have that overall ability or even mentorship enough to say, this is how you play quarterback in the NFL. This is how we do things. And having a guy like Russell Wilson, who's been there, done that, been at
right.
the highest of highs, the lowest of lows in his career with, being a draft pick that was fairly high. I think it was a second or third round guy in Seattle, won a Super Bowl, been to 2 Super Bowls, get shied when it comes to MVP votes, but still perennial Pro Bowl player in his time in Atlanta, in his time in Seattle, I should say, and kind of get a little bit of fall from grace, but kind of a big-headed, the lights were brighter than he was for Russell Wilson. I feel like it's going to do Justin Fields a little bit more help. Now, Tomlin did say he's not ruling out the possibility of even seeing Justin Fields out on the field this season. I feel like it'll definitely help him get more time without having the full strain of saying, hey, you're the number one guy. We're going through you, good, bad, or indifferent. With Russell Wilson, this sadly could very well be the last hurrah for him as a starter. Will he be the starter throughout the season? I mean, I don't want to say that he won't be, but I don't feel comfortable saying he's going to start all 17 games this year.
Right.
Is he going to be will he remain the starting quarterback throughout the season? I think it's got my stamp of approval. Will he start all 17 barring major injury or just, not good enough play from him? Given what the Pittsburgh Steelers have done the last few years when it comes to quarterback, you know what? I think it's absurd. I don't think he'll be the starter throughout the whole season. There might be a time where he's a little banged up or just, not consistent enough. We're going to go with Justin this week. We'll see what happens. Doesn't play overly well. QB battle mid-season. We'll see what happens. I think it's absurd too.
Yep, I'm with you. I am up in a couple picks, but we're good to go. So it's going at a slow pace. Hopefully these guys get rolling here. But I don't know. The Steelers are kind of a mess. All right, next one, Voldy.
We head to the West Coast now, of course, with NFL Cut Down Day and players moving left, right, and center. Well, one thing you haven't heard or seen about is maybe what a potential addition to coaching staffs would add to a new coaching group that they have with the Lachargers. And, of course, head coach Jimharbaugh wants to bring in a player as maybe a coach that did have a big impact early on in the NFL coaching career for Jim Harbaugh. Now, Harbaugh was quoted as saying that he would like to give former quarterback Colin Kaepernick a job on his coaching staff, not as a player. In a conversation that did take place with the USA Today Sports, he was quoted as saying, that being Harbaugh, saying that he'd be a tremendous coach if that's the path he has chosen. Now, of course, with Colin Kaepernick now heading into his twilight years of playing ability at the age of 36, has still been holding tryouts and also workouts for the possibility of returning to professional football over the last few years. Of course, him being ruled out and been out of the league since 2016, Colin Kaepernick has not played professional football, but still has that desire to resume his playing career. Still training, still pushing through. Kaepernick is trying to see if the window is still open, even though being quote-unquote blackballed out of the league by team owners in the NFL. Of course, now with this conversation taking place, is it absurd or approved? Could we see, and would you like to see Colin Kaepernick out there as a coach whether it be with the Chargers or just in the league itself? Would you like to see Cap as a coach?
I wouldn't have, obviously I wouldn't have a problem with it. I think he'd be a very good coach. I don't think he would cause any, controversy or anything. So it doesn't surprise me that Harbaugh wants him on the staff because, that's his guy. The question is, does Colin Kaepernick want to be a coach in the NFL? I think he's still under the impression that he can come back and be a quarterback in the NFL still after, is it 7 years, 8 years now that he's been trying?
2016, at least 7 years.
There's been roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. So maybe his way back in the NFL is coaching, and that's not half bad. If you think about it, I don't necessarily think it's a huge. I think it's got my stamp of approval if he wants to. It wouldn't surprise me. I just hope the NFL doesn't make a huge deal. It's going to be a big media thing. Let's be honest. But I think Kaepernick, if he wants to, I think he could be a very good coach. He's played the position. He's very knowledgeable of the game. And, again, I just don't – I look at this situation and I say, well, let's see how it all goes and, go from there. But, yeah, I got no problem with him coaching. Even if it's not for Harbaugh, if he goes to another team or, coaches there, that's not too bad. It's something to where, you can get back in the league. You can, do things that, you can be that, voice in the locker room and things like that. Yeah, stamp of approval. I'll give him my stamp of approval. I think he'd be a good coach. So, Voldy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it would be very interesting to see him on the coaching side of things. We saw his playmaking ability as, obviously, quarterback in the National Football League, and that does provide its own level of merit, too. Him getting, kind of blacklisted, if you will, in 2016 and being out of the league since then, you would think it would provide some perspective for him to say, well, I know that probably my playing career is most likely over. How can I have an impact on the game that has given me an opportunity to not only play at the highest level, but to also give me a voice that maybe wouldn't have been possible if I didn't play football or even professional football too. It was something that I would find very interesting. I think it would definitely be a benefit for whether it be with the Chargers or with it be another organization. I feel like any team would be lucky to have someone like Colin Kaepernick, minus the media circus, have them come in, if not exactly be a position coach right off the bat, but work his way through the ranks of being, a coaching intern or an assistant, or at least learn through a system that way to maybe hopefully in the near future that he would be able to work his way through the ranks of being a position coach, and maybe 5, 6, 7 years down the road, he could very well be an offensive coordinator, maybe 10, 15 years from now, he'd be a head coach or something along those lines. There's a lot of opportunity that comes along with it. It just comes down to Kaepernick making the decision, okay, playing is no longer in the purview. Now it's time to see what else we can do, whether it be through coaching or whatever he wants to do. Colin Kaepernick can do whatever he wants now at this point. The whole hype and media circus that was with him and voicing his, kneeling during the national anthem, I feel like that has gone away, at least from the high point it was back in 2016. Now to the point where maybe he could very well slide in without it being such a media firestorm than say it was maybe 5 years ago or something.
Give or take. Hold on, I got one more pick here.
All right.
Okay, Michael Pittman, Malik Neighbors, DK Metcalf, or Deebo Samuel. What do you think?
Yes.
Yes.
Me personally, I'd go DK. That's
DK?
just me though.
Yeah, he's legit.
Decent.
He gets it done, man. I like it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to add Deebo though. It's kind of are we feeling Neighbors? Is Neighbors gonna be that good or no?
Remember, it's the Giants he plays for.
Yeah, I know. That's what sucks. Damn. You know what? I'm gonna go. Well, I already have McCaffrey. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Give me. Damn it! This is tough. I didn't think this would be that tough. Not gonna lie, Voldy. I'm sorry. Let's go. I'm gonna go with Metcalf. We're going Metcalf, Voldy. I took your advice.
Told you.
Took your advice.
Told
So
you.
that's what we'll do. Drake London and May. Oh, Mahomes goes right after that. So it's gonna be a while. So yep. I agree with you on the Kaepernick thing. And here we go. Last one, Voldy.
Well, of course, sticking with the world of football, we're actually moving to flag football, of course, with the Paris Olympics now well in close, at least for 2024. We set our eyes towards Los Angeles 2028, and one of the sports that will be added to the Olympic field will be flag football. And, of course, the big hype around flag football is quite possibly maybe seeing NFL players who have expressed their desire to join Team USA in playing flag football for 2028 to secure a gold medal in the sport that is, well, predominantly American. But one player is quite adamant about NFL players maybe not joining the team and letting those that have paved the way for flag football and growing the sport to get their chance to compete at the highest possible level for them. That being Daryl Hoosh Doucette, the quarterback for the U.S. flag football team that has won 4 straight flag football world championships and will actually defend its title later this month in the world championships, was quoted as saying, I think it's disrespectful that they just automatically assume, they being NFL players, they just automatically assume that they'll be able to join the Olympic team because of the person that they are. They didn't help grow the game to get to the Olympics. Give the guys who helped get this game to where it is its respect as well. Now, players including the likes of quarterback Joe Burrow and Caleb Williams have both expressed their interest in playing the Olympics, but Hoosh Doucette did throw out and say and lay a, well, for lack of a better term, threw the flag out and saying that he thinks that the flag football players that have paved the way to get the sport at the Olympics should get their chance, as opposed to saying like Tyreek Hill or even Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes leading the charge for Team USA. Is it absurd or approved? Does Doucette have a point of with NFL players not being part of flag football for the Olympics coming up in 2028 in Los Angeles?
Of course that the NFL players should be allowed. I mean, they're the best players in the world. Listen.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to win flag football, it's you got to have these types of you got to have the players that I just were talking about. You got to go with Tyreek. You got to go with JJ. Running back, I'm not even probably McCaffrey. I'd probably say McCaffrey.
Yeah, probably.
As for his comments, Daryl saying, I think it's disrespectful, like you said, that they just automatically assume that they're able to join the Olympic team because of the person that they are. But listen, this is, maybe they have to try out. Maybe they should. I mean, maybe that's the deal. But listen, it's the NFL. These guys work their tails off each season and each season out. I mean, they have expressed wanting to play Burrow, Caleb Williams, Tyreek, Jefferson, I think. I think he mentioned that or once or twice. Anyway,
right.
I like this. I feel like those guys don't need to necessarily prove. They can get it done. Do you want to win gold or not, Mr. Doucette or whatever is it? Hoosh, whatever. Listen, man. If you want to, you're not just going to give it to him. Well, then I'll, try to beat him. Go right ahead. But guess what? These are the best players in the world. Of course they're going to go and get in and get it done. Tyreek's going to be great. Jefferson's going to cook people's ankles. I mean, other countries are screwed. I'm just saying. So, Voldy, what do you think?
I when we heard about flag football getting announced and added to the Olympics for 2028, all the memes coming out, it's like, just imagine Tyreek Hill running the 9 route on a Lithuanian a math teacher or something like that. Like, I understand like the jokes and everything along with that. Flag football is definitely no joke. I haven't watched any of it, but like the guys that have come through and built up this program, I personally think if they're good enough, they could certainly, make, NFL talent versus flag football talent, 2 completely different skill sets. NFL football players, they know the old backyard school version of flag football, but the flag football players that play now, these guys are no slouches. I think an opportunity to at least try out for the U.S. flag football team is certainly worth its merit. The NFL did come out and say initially that, they're not going to, I believe they said that they aren't going to allow players to actually participate, but with the NFL kind of being a figurehead and actually leading flag football, and especially at the Olympics, I feel like they're going to have to backtrack those comments here pretty quick. And especially with the commercial they put out with Jalen Hurts, announcing, of course, flag football in the 2028 Summer Olympics, they're going to have to backtrack and maybe say, okay, you can try, but if you get hurt, that's on you. We're not, liable for any of that.
Right.
Because at that point, too, with the Olympics, the only really thing you're going to be missing is like training camp, maybe a preseason game or 2, but you think Tyreek Hill is going to play in the preseason? You think Justin Jefferson's going to play overly in the preseason? You think Lamar is going to play overly in the season? No, they're going to save that for the regular season. You get a lot more with the scrimmages and, of course, inter-squad matchups like we talked about to start off the show, too. Does he have a point? Absolutely. I think if the players in the flag football team for Team USA are good enough, they're going to beat out Tyreek Hill. They're going to beat out Justin Jefferson. They're going to beat out Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. They're going to beat out Caleb Williams. They're good enough and know the play and the systems that they've been, basically implementing and everything. I think they have a legit shot. I honestly think they'll have a good shot. They won 4 straight world championships and looking to make it a 5th. But at the same time, would be pretty sweet to watch Tyreek and them win a gold medal for Team USA. But if they're good enough, they're good enough. It's got my stamp of approval. I think they do have, I think he has a point, but I think an opportunity to at least bring them into the fold and at least, your best against our best, see who wins. I think it's definitely worth a shot.
Gold, nonetheless. That's all.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Great job with Shield Shoutouts this week. Voldy, and damn it, Cooper Kupp was taken. That's neither here nor there, but we'll get to that. Next, we got some Shield shoutouts tonight we got to get to, and then we'll wrap things up, go from there, and that'll do it. So let's get it going. What's up?
Do it.
Shout outs.
Shield shoutouts.
All right, Shield, who you shouting out tonight?
Well, of course, with Shield shoutouts in the start of the 2024 NFL football season, sadly, one of our Zona favorites will not be stepping out onto the 2024 field for the team that he has previously played for in years past. And, of course, backing up C.J. Stroud in Houston is Case Keenum, and sadly, with a lingering foot injury that he has been put on the injured reserve, sadly, he will not be able to play for the 2024 season. So we do wish a speedy recovery. Best regards to Case Keenum, and hopefully the Houston Texans will do everything they can to maybe win the big one this year. I'm not putting that out into the ether, but hopefully a speedy recovery and hopefully see him next season, that being Case Keenum for the Houston Texans, or just in the NFL altogether as well. That's going to do it for Shield Shoutouts here this week.
There you go. There you have it.
There you
Shield
go.
shout-outs. Great shout-outs as always. We
Thanks,
love
sir.
Keenum's keepers. Speedy recovery to Keenum's keepers.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, like I said, that's our guy, man. That's our guy. So, Voldy, we mentioned this at the beginning of the show, and we should probably mention it again. The MinneZona Pick'em is ready to roll. Let's go, baby. So you guys can sign up on ESPN. We are now on ESPN instead of CBS.
Yes.
We will add you. We can do that for you, win prizes. And also at the beginning of the show, we talked about how you could win signed NFL mini helmets. Breece Hall,
Crazy.
Terrell Davis, Drake London, who I just drafted like not 10 minutes ago. So we got that going for us. So you guys can win that. If you place in the top 3 of the Pick'em, you could win. So keep it. So we'll keep you informed on that and go from there. So, so we got that. We got that going on for us. We got some other things as well coming up. We will keep you in the loop. Check our socials medias tomorrow. Just saying, you might want to check it out. And we got to do it quick too. So, and also, guys, if you're like, well, you know what, I don't really want to wait and on merch or anything. Well, guess what? We got plenty of merch, guys. We got the quarter zips. We've got the hats. We've got the tumblers. We've got the stickers. Anything that you, by God, want, we got it, baby. So make sure you check that out. We are very much looking forward to, our pick'em, other things beyond that as well. These hats are fantastic and whatnot. So we cannot wait to give that out to you guys. So your boy is on the clock. And Josh Allen is still on the board. I think I do it, don't I?
Do it.
It's the 5th round. Well, no, 4th round. Okay, you know what? I'm going. I'm doing it. Oh, he paused it. Shoot. Okay, never mind. Because they'll change the clock, which is fine. But that's what we're doing. We're doing Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. And then after that, let's see here, and then we'll wrap the show up. I promise, Zoners. I promise. So
we're all waiting with anticipation.
You guys really care about my team. I really appreciate it. No,
of course.
You guys don't. It's okay. Calvin Ridley, Ayuk, Zay Flowers, T. Higgins. You know what? I'm going to go Mark Andrews. Let's go Mark Andrews.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a very good tight end. I think he can have a solid season. So let's go Mark Andrews. All right, you guys know the deal as always. Our guys that, we like to give shout-outs at the end of the show. W2 Performance, Will tell he will be inducted into the St. Thomas Academy Hall of Fame. Yes, Athletic Hall of Fame.
Big dog.
Congratulations to Will, much deserved, and to all of the inductees of the STA Athletic Hall of Fame. Congratulations to all of you as well. There's so many stories I could tell. I would like to go there, talk to Rattell, take a photo, send it to the zoners, and hopefully get him on here. So check that out. And then also check out his stuff, www.w2performance.com, for all of his content and things like that. He's got a lot of it, so check it out. Shout out to National Fleet Graphic, Crown Rental, Tyler Knutson, and our guys at the Brotherly Ballers podcast, Tyler Hermann and Jack Vickers. Make sure you check out our mock draft that has been posted on YouTube today. Yay. So check out their stuff as well. I thought I had a pretty good mock draft. How about you, Voldy?
Yeah. I felt all right about it, and a little inside baseball on that too. Like, during that whole draft, I was going through a little bit of a sick spell to the point where I was literally dripping in sweat the whole time. And it wasn't because I was nervous about this whole draft. I mean, I was just going through a whole range of emotions, physically, mentally, emotionally. I felt all right about my draft. Now, I just wish that my fantasy draft would end up like that with our college group that we've got.
That's right.
But I highly doubt it's going to end up like that. So.
Well, you never know. The keepers will keep keeping on, if you know what I mean. So we'll see what happens. But, yeah, so make sure you check that out. Our mock draft, we thought went very well. And make sure you check out TLS Performance, our guy Troy Stoudemire Jr. for all of his content. And then make sure you check out the Popcorn Bucket List with Nick Dahlhoff and Rhino, the Rhino, Ryan Myhrberg, and Omni Entertainment. So thanks again for watching this week. Next week, you know the deal. We're doing our Vikings 2024 preview, bold predictions, the places of each team. It's going to be fantastic. Let's get it going. We love it. So can't wait to talk to you guys next week. And as always, remember, folks, keep in the zone.
Holla.
Thank you for watching MinneZona Sports Live. Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. for live show broadcast. And as Voldy likes to say, follow us on all the socials medias.